Students, you're welcome once again to your program, School on Air. Biology is back on air, and I hope you have had a nice time since the last time we met. So today we want to continue with our study on the nervous coordination. Now, what is nervous coordination? When you hear the word nervous, sometimes you feel like, oh, somebody is nervous. Oh, that person is afraid. Oh, nervous, somebody is afraid. No, it doesn't really mean that somebody is afraid. Nerves simply stands for some tissues in our bodies, and that's why I want to study them today. So let's see what nervous coordination is. Now, to look at nervous coordination, what is the word coordination itself? What is the meaning of coordination? Now, coordination is a process. Now, coordination is defined as a process by which different parts of an organism work together for proper effectiveness. The process by which different parts of an organism work together for proper effectiveness. Now, you take for instance, your stomach, you just ate maybe rice and beans. Now, your stomach has done its part by breaking down the food, and then the food now remains in the stomach. And then the next question is, what now happens to the food? There has to be some coordination as to how the digested food materials will get to the next level, that is into the blood. So that means there has to be some coordination. Imagine your eyes are seeing. You are seeing something that is dangerous. You are seeing a very big snake, and your legs are not ready to run. You see, that means something has to coordinate the leg and tell the leg to start running away from danger. So coordination is simply the process by which different parts of the organism, we have different parts in our body. We have the head, we have the legs, we have the stomach, and inside the organs too, we have various, inside our bodies, we have various organs. The kidneys are there, they have their own duties. The brain is there, has its own duty. The liver is there, they have their duties. Now, each one cannot work separately. So there has to be what we call proper coordination. Now, all metabolic processes in the body of an organism do not function individually. That's where I want to emphasize. They do not function individually. They have to come together. Something has to integrate them. Each one has to function individually, but then their collective assignments or collective duties has to come together, and something has to coordinate that. So they are closely linked and dependent on each other for effective functioning. Now, take for instance, the kidney is, the function of the kidney is for excretion. It takes away excess water, excess mineral salts, from the blood, and then excretes it. Will you know that the kidney will not do the work effectively until something from the brain happens? The brain has to send a particular signal for the kidney to function. So that will mean that the kidneys may be there and they will not function until the message comes, from the brain. So we are talking about the fact that all the parts of our body, though they could, be there doing their own work, but something has to integrate the work so that you can have a whole. Now, there are two communication systems that bring about coordinations in our body. Just two communication systems that bring about communication or coordination in our body. We have one, the endocrine system, which is made up of the hormones, and the nervous system. Now, just like I said, all parts of our body, they have their own duties. They have things they do. The stomach will digest food, the eyes will see, the ears will hear, the legs will walk. And then, a lot of other functions. The liver has its own functions too. Now, there are two communication systems in the body that integrate or that coordinate, all the systems. We have the endocrine system, which is made up of a system of hormones. And there are many hormones in the body. And then we have the nervous system. Now, let's take them one after the other. Now, let's look at the endocrine system. Now, we said there are two systems coordinating the body. Now, we have the endocrine system. Now, you can see the picture here representing both male and female. We integrate both male and female. You can see, from the brain, you can see some of the endocrine glands there. You can see the pituitary gland there. You can see the thyroid gland. You can see, those are the kidneys there. You can see the adrenal gland on top of it. Then you can see the pancreas there. And then, secreting some hormones. And then you can see the testes and the ovaries also secreting hormones. Now, what we call this one, the endocrine system. They help to coordinate activities in the body. For instance, now, you see something that makes you afraid, the adrenal gland, you know, there on top of the kidneys will release its own hormone, which will coordinate your body so that your body will be ready for action, either to run away from danger or to face it squarely and fight it out. You know, that's the work of that one. And then we have the testes all there, you know, also giving us the reproductive hormones, you know, whether you be fertile or not. Those things are there. We have the thyroid gland, the pituitary gland, and you can see the pituitary gland there. We call the pituitary gland the master hormone or the master gland, because it's not because of the number of hormones it secretes, but the fact that it secretes, the hormones are able to coordinate all other glands, whether they are to release their own secretions or not. So we call it the master gland. Now, this brings us to the next coordinating center, which is the nervous system. So you can see a picture also representing both male and female. So you can see the nervous system made up of the brain, the spinal cord. You can see the spinal cord, you know, running through the center of the man. And then you can see some other nerves also, you know, along that line. So those two systems, you know, they coordinate how your body functions, or let me say, they integrate the functioning of your body, because every part of the body has its own function. So those two systems are the ones that integrate so that all those works can be meaningful. Your stomach cannot just be digesting food and then the food does not know where to go. Something has to coordinate it somewhere and let the food know where next to go. Now, there is an important link, very, very important link between those two systems. That important link is called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is in the brain, and it is the important link between the two systems. So that would suggest that if somebody has an accident and something happens to the hypothalamus, though all parts of the body are still there, the body, I mean, all the systems are still there, there will be a lot of problems. The person will not be able to relate properly because there will not be proper integration of the various activities going on in the body. So the hypothalamus is very, very important because it is the link between the two systems, that is the endocrine system and the spinal cord. Now that's the hypothalamus there. You can see the hypothalamus, it is linking, you know, that's the hypothalamus there. It is linking those two systems, you know, the endocrine system and the nervous system. Now, we are going to look at the differences between those two systems. Now, we see that they are working together. Now, but there should be some differences. How are they doing the work and what are their differences? Now, for instance, for the nervous system, the messages are passed mainly as electrical impulses along nerves. When you look at the nerves in our bodies, they look like wires, you know, like flexible wires. Some are big, some are small, you know, just like flexible. They run all through, you know, the entire system. So the nervous system passes, you know, the message or the messages through as electrical impulses along the nerves. Meanwhile, the endocrine system, on the other hand, they pass their own messages in form of chemicals, you know. The form, you know, the messages are passed as chemical substances or hormones. Now, these chemical substances are called hormones, and they are passed through the bloodstream. So that means the nervous system has a channel to work, while the endocrine system has its own channel, but they are working together. The nervous system uses what we call electrical impulses, whereas the endocrine system uses chemical substances that passes through the blood. Now, for the nervous system, response is very fast. For the nervous system, response is very, very fast. You touch a hot object. In fact, before you think, you would have removed your hand. Very, very fast. You don't even think about it. So that's the work of your nervous system. You quickly remove your hand, or you step on a, you know, on a nail. You quickly remove your leg before you even think. You begin to say, oh, I stepped on something. Something made you remove your hand or made you to remove your leg. But on the other hand, response in the endocrine system is slow. Response in the endocrine system is very, very slow. Now, take for instance now, when a woman is pregnant, some hormones are released, e.g. prolactin. Now, this prolactin, it will be working, you know, in the space of the 9 months, secreting, you know, milk into the mammary gland. Very, very slow, but very, very steady. But compared to that of the nervous system, very, very fast. But for the endocrine system, the response very, very slow. You know, it will take a long time before the milk is formed, before it is stored in the mammary gland, then before the baby is born, and then the milk starts coming out. Then for the nervous system also, the effect is for a very short time. The nervous system effect is very, very, very short time. Just like I said, you touch something, and then within a few minutes, you haven't forgotten that you touched something, you know, in the last few minutes, and then it is over. But in the case of the endocrine system, the effect is for a very, very long time. Now, take for instance, a woman who is in labor. As soon as, before labor starts, a particular hormone called oxytocin is released into the blood. And then gradually it begins to find its way. It will move through the blood. When it gets to the womb, then the contraction starts. And if you ask a pregnant woman, those who have given birth before, they will tell you that the contraction does not start, you know, immediately. It will just start gradually. It will be mild initially. Then, you know, it will take hours, 24 hours sometimes, 48 hours. And then the pain will still be on. So you can see that the effect of the endocrine system is for a very, very long time. It can last for hours, 24 hours, 48 hours. But in the case of the nervous system, the effect is for a very, very shorter time. Now, for the nervous system, the response does not depend on the quantity of stimuli. It doesn't really matter whether your hand is touching a little candle or you are putting your hand into a furnace. As soon as you get the stimulus of heat, you quickly withdraw your hand. So not really whether what you are responding to is a big one. You can quickly respond to whatever quantity of a stimuli. But stimuli refers to changes in the external environment. A stimulus is a change. Whether it is cold now and then you begin to feel cold, that's a stimulus of cold. Or it is hot, then begin to find yourself, that is a stimulus of heat. So stimulus simply refers to changes in the external environment. So your response by your nervous system does not really depend on the quantity of the stimuli or the stimulus. The moment your hand touches a hot object, whether it is very hot, you quickly remove your hand. So you don't have to say, oh, the fire must be so big before I can remove my hand. The moment your hand senses it, it removes it. But in the case of the endocrine system, too much or too little can cause metabolic disorder, and that's where the problem is. Now, take for instance now, you have a thyroxine, thyroxine is one of the hormones, secreted from the thyroid gland in the endocrine system. A little baby now, for instance, if a child does not secrete enough for thyroxine, the child develops what you call cretinism, which is physical and mental retardation. The baby will not grow like the age mates, physically retarded. Not only that, mentally retarded too, just because one hormone is not enough. But take for instance again, if it's an adult that is not secreting enough, the person becomes obese, so big, so so sluggish, the body is not coordinated. Why? The hormone is not enough. And if it is too much, the person becomes very hyperactive, cannot even rest. The body can never rest. When you're sleeping, the legs are moving up and down, the body is never at rest. Then the person becomes very, very thin, and the eyes bulge out. So you can see that there is a lot of effect from too much or too little of the hormones from the endocrine system. Now, the nervous system is mainly controlled by the brain and the spinal cord. The nervous system is mainly controlled by the brain and the spinal cord. We are still going to look at the brain and the spinal cord to see what they do. In the case of the endocrine system, it is controlled by the pituitary glands. So I told us the other time, I said the pituitary gland, we call it the master gland. Not because it is situated in the brain. That's why, because it is in the brain, it has to be called master. No. But because the hormones that it secretes those hormones are able to control the functioning of the other hormones, other glands in the body. In other words, an hormone can be secreted from the pituitary gland to stop the other glands from secreting their own. So that means it can exert some form of authority. Let me just put it that way. Authority over all the other glands in the body. It can tell the adrenal, don't release adrenaline, or stop secreting adrenaline, or begin to release adrenaline. Or it can tell the testes, begin to release the female sex hormone, there may be progesterone or estrogen, or can say no, don't release it. So that makes it master gland. So the endocrine system is controlled by the pituitary gland. Now, for the nervous system, effectors, that is muscles, the effectors, which are the muscles, they are the ones who receive, the message. We have effectors. When your hand touches a hot object, That hand is the effector, you know. It will, you know, when it receives the message, you know, when it is affected by the message, it goes to the effector. Your effector now will be the muscle that is next that will effect the change. So effectors, they receive the message, and then those ones, the effectors receive the message, and then the effectors effect the receiver. And then for that of the endocrine system, target organs receive the message. Target organs. I gave us an example of the hormone oxytocin that is produced, you know, from the pituitary gland there. Now, this hormone, even though it is produced from the brain there, this hormone will go to the target organ. And what is the target organ? The womb, the uterus of a female. That is the target organ, so that it will now begin to make the place to contract. Or let me take, for instance, the antidiuretic hormone that is produced also from the pituitary gland. The target hormone is the kidney, the two kidneys. So the two kidneys must take information from that hormone before it can start doing its work. So we have target organs. The hormones are secreted into the blood. Then the blood will carry the hormones until it gets to the target organs to receive the message. Now, we want to look at the nervous system now proper. Now, there are just two parts in the nervous system. So the nervous system is made up of two parts. We have the central nervous system, which we shorten it to CNS. You know, the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and the spinal cord. Now you can see the brain, and then you can see this structure here. That is the spinal cord. The brain is up there, and then you have the spinal cord running from the base of the brain down to the tail. That is to the spine. You know, so we have the brain and the spinal cord making up the central nervous system. And remember, when we say something is central, it is in the center of the body. You can see that the brain is aligned center, and then you can see the spinal cord also right in the middle of the body. So that's why we call them central nervous system. So two parts. Let's see the other one. Then the second one is called the peripheral nervous system, PNS, which consists of the nervous tissues found throughout the body. Peripheral, from the English word periphery. Periphery simply means on the outskirts, on the outside, different from central. You know, central is in the center, then periphery or peripheral around the center. So we have the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord, and then the peripheral nervous system. You can see, you know, those nerves scattered all through the body. You know, the brain and the spinal cord in the central nervous system, and then all other nerves, you know, around them. That's what we now call the peripheral nervous system, which we call the PNS, and they are distributed all over the body. Now, again, the peripheral nervous system is divided into two. We have the somatic nervous system, and then we have the autonomic nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system is divided into two again. The somatic nervous system, anytime you hear the word somatic, somatic refers to body, you know, things, but the body that relates to the outside. But autonomic, from the word automatic, something you don't have any control over, autonomic nervous system. The environment inside your body has to be controlled by something. Now, can you imagine that you have eaten now and you go to sleep? You are not there to tell your stomach to quickly start digesting. You don't have to do that. There are parts of the body that helps to do that. Even when you are sleeping, your liver continues to work. There has to be a coordination from it. So that's what is done by the autonomic nervous system. Now again, the autonomic nervous system is further divided into two. We have the parasympathetic nervous system, and then the sympathetic nervous system. That is the part of your body where you don't have a control over. It's divided into two again. You know, we have the parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system. We are still going to look at them separately or into details later. So we have the parasympathetic nervous system. We are still going to look at them. And then we have the sympathetic nervous system on the other hand, and we are still going to look at how they work. Now, these two systems, the sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, they are antagonistic in action. We are going to look at that, you know, by and by. Now, let's look at the major parts of the nervous system. Let's put everything together now. So we have the nervous system. Then, from the nervous system now, we have the central nervous system, and the peripheral nervous system. So from the nervous system, we have the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Under the central nervous system, we have the brain and the spinal cord. So under the central nervous system, we have the brain and the spinal cord. And for the peripheral nervous system, we have the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. Remember, I said somatic has to do with things you can relate with, physical changes around you, while the autonomic has to do with automatic activities that take place without our reasoning. And the autonomic nervous system is divided into two again, which is the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. So these are the major parts of the nervous system. Remember, we said coordination is the putting together of all activities that take place in our body. And it is controlled majorly, by two major systems, which is the nervous system and the endocrine system. We have seen what the nervous system and what the endocrine system is. System of glands, the ductless glands that secrete chemicals called hormones. They have their own duties to perform. Whereas on the other hand, we have the nervous system, which is a system of nerves that look like wires, that look like flexible wires that run through our system. And we now said it is divided into two: the central nervous, the peripheral, the center in the center, the peripheral around the center, and then the central one is the brain and the spinal cord. Whereas for the peripheral nervous system, we have the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. Now, we want to look at the central nervous system. We'll just start with the central nervous system. Like I said, it is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. So the central nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. And there are three major parts of the brain. The brain is made up of three parts. Now I want to take it one after the other. The brain, then later on the spinal cord. But first of all, let's look at what the brain is made up of. Now the brain is made up of just three parts: the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. So the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. From the picture there, you can see the brain, the dorsal aspect of the brain of the rat. And since the rat is also a mammal, it can as well go for man. Can just use it. So everything you see here, you also find it, the replica, in man. So you can see some parts of the brain there. You have two lobes up there, which are called the olfactory lobes. Later we are going to look at the function of the olfactory lobes. Then we have the cerebrum. There are two hemispheres. We have the cerebrum there. So that part is just what we call the forebrain. In the man, that's the brain of a man there. That's the brain of the man there. The forebrain. We are looking at the forebrain now. Remember, we said that the brain is made up of three parts: the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. What we see here now is the forebrain. It's so large, and it is made up of the cerebrum. All you see here now is the cerebrum, very large hemisphere. It is made up of the cerebrum and the olfactory lobes. There are two major parts in the forebrain. We have the olfactory lobes and the cerebrum, and then there are two minor parts. That is the thalami. That's the thalami showing there. The thalami, singular thalamus. There are two of them, and then we have the hypothalamus. So we have the thalami. We are looking at there are two major parts in the forebrain. We have the cerebrum and the olfactory lobes, and then we have two minor parts. We have the thalami and the hypothalamus. So we have the hypothalami and the thalami. So those are the minor parts in the forebrain. With this, we are going to round off today, because we really want to go into details. We want to see what the cerebrum is. We want to see what the olfactory lobe is. We want to see what the thalami is, what the hypothalami is also. We want to see what those things are. Now, I have some questions here that I want you to answer, and send your answers to the address that will be pasted even on the screen. Now, number one, name the two communication systems that bring about coordination in human body. Name the two communication systems that bring about coordination in the human body. And then state 4 differences between the two systems in a tabular form. 4 differences between the two systems. Now with this, we'll call it a day today. I hope next time you would have done your assignment so that from there we can continue together.